Hey guys, and welcome back to another Woodbrew video.
This week's video is a whole lot different than normal. It's kind of a behind the scenes look at how we get started on a project. And yes, it's part one of the coffee table outdoor series that we're doing. We don't really know what it is. That's kind of the purpose of this week's video. And we're really excited to be partnering with SketchUp, which is the software we use to design all of our projects, to bring you this sort of behind the scenes series of videos before some of our upcoming projects that just give you a look into what it is that we do to come up with a project, how we get started, how we design it, all that kind of stuff. But without further ado, let's get the day started.
Do you like my shirt? It's an official FIFA shirt, and I saw me a ham once.
You did?
Did you know that? Yeah.
It's a very cool shirt.
Thank you. I like it.
So while Molly works on her mood board so that I can get somewhat of an idea of what it is she wants, I'm actually going to do some research for a trip that we have coming up. We're going to be doing sort of a cross-country road trip in the van again, and we have had zero time to plan for this, so that's kind of on me to decide and figure out, you know, what we're going to be able to do while we're gone, and try to get the logistics of it together. So yeah, I'm going to try to squeeze in a little bit of that before she gets done, so that hopefully have a little bit of an idea of what we're gonna do before we leave. I think we leave in like a week and a half. Also, been having a lot of shoulder pain because I've been doing a ton of swimming. If you guys didn't know, I talk about this all the time on Instagram, but I train a lot for triathlons recently, and yeah, so I've been doing a lot of time in the pool recently, and this thing is like a kind of like STEM, or I think it's called a TENS unit. It sends like electrical pulses to stimulate your muscles, get them moving, kind of help you relieve some of the pain. So yeah, my shoulder's probably gonna be bouncing around here in a minute, but I'm gonna get into this. And I actually think I found a pretty cool trail. This is the Kings Peak, which is the highest point in Utah, but it is 26 miles long, almost 27 miles long, and that's gonna be pretty rough. So trying to get some ideas of some smaller stuff maybe we can do in between, and kind of figure out like what our big goal is for this trip. And I think this would be a pretty cool thing to do on it. It's actually the next morning, and we're just gonna go ahead and hop straight into SketchUp. Molly and I did a little bit more talking yesterday about material choice, things that we kind of wanted to do. She created her mood board, and I'll show you that in a second. But I just wanted to kind of go straight into SketchUp this time. In the last video, we did a whole bunch of talking about the materials and different things like that. And if you're interested in that, check the last video. But I kind of wanted to skip that so we could jump more into SketchUp and learn a few more tricks. And I kind of just want to focus on a few more key areas throughout this series so that you can learn very specific things as we go along while still learning like the general idea of how to put something together on here. So let's hop into SketchUp and get started. Alright, so Molly made this mood board, as she calls them, and I think she used Illustrator for this. I'm not exactly sure, but this is basically the general idea, and she makes them look all pretty, but honestly, it's just about getting some ideas together of like a mood that you're going for, I guess. So she's got a lot of different scenes here that aren't just focusing on a table per se. They're kind of the entire scene, like the whole feel that you're really going for. And she even adds some colors in here, and that way for, I guess, decorating afterwards, pillows, different things like that, she can kind of reference the colors that she's been pulling off of these that she really likes to kind of like keep that mood going. So with that in mind, we are going to kind of pull inspiration off of this mood board. This is definitely the cane route, is what we did on the media center recently. This is like kind of chunky, more like what we did on the outdoor sofa last week, and this is kind of where I want to be, with maybe a little bit of this added in. I kind of have an idea of something I'd like to see, but also I'm kind of interested in this little design here is pretty cool too. But this is kind of my reference point. So she pulled these pictures from Pinterest, I think, or online or wherever, and just basically pasted them all together. So if you just want to have a Pinterest board, that works too. And this is just a good way to kind of isolate things that you're not looking at too much at once. But, well, let's get started. So I'm going to hit R on the keyboard, and that brings up the rectangular tool. It's also up here, and I'm going to click and drag, and I don't even care where this is. Like, some people try to make it square by holding shift or something like that, or just don't do that. Just pull it out and let go. And then down here in the bottom the bottom right, there are these numbers, and this is the actual dimensions of what you just did. And if you just start typing without doing anything else, it'll clear that for you. So I'm going to do 3.5, then comma 3.5, and that's 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. If I hit enter, you'll see that it creates the square, and that is a 4x4 post essentially in 2D form. And if we hit P, which I already did, that is the push-pull button that's up here. And that allows us to do things like this. And again, I don't even worry about where this ends up. I just let go. I know I want it to be in the upward position. I mean vertical. I want it to go vertical. So I'll just pull it up there, and then this is kind of going to be the legs, and I don't even know really where I want to be yet, so I'm just going to type in 12 inches, and we can play around with that later. And I am wanting to keep with the 4x4 look because of the video that we did last week with the sofa, outdoor sofa build. I kind of want it to at least look similar to that, so it goes well with it. And yeah, so we're going to see what we can do with some 4x4 posts. So I'm going to click the space bar, which brings up the select tool, which is here, the little pointer. And if you triple click, maybe that's a quadruple click. If you click a lot, it highlights everything. And you want to do that because you want to create this individual object into what's called a component. And what that's going to allow you to do is not have things stick together, and it'll make your life a whole lot easier when you start moving things around and changing things, because components, when they're duplicated, will be changed at the same time, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But just know that the more you organize yourself on SketchUp, the better the process is going to be, and the easier it is to make changes down the road. So I'm just going to hit G, and if you want to name it, you can name it here what that is. So if I wanted to say it is the table leg, I could do that. And there are definitely some programs out there, like there's a Cutlass program that you can export this, and having these labeled correctly is basically vital. But today I'm not really going to do that. So in the future, I'm not going to worry about naming these. I'm just going to create them for the sake of having them being separate objects. Okay. So we have a leg, and I'm actually going to go ahead and put a texture on that. So B brings up the texture board. It's a paint bucket up here. And I've got this texture, which is kind of a fur texture, and I'm actually going to go a step further. And as you see, I'm double clicking here, because when it's not double clicked, it's just the entire object. Like if you want to go inside the object to select a single face, you have to double click. And I'm doing that because I'm going to add ingrain to both the top and bottom. This is definitely overkill for just getting a general idea of what you want to do, but I'm actually going to export this into a cool file, like photo rendering of this later, so that we can use it on different things like social media. And if we were going to build this for a client, I could send it to them in an invoice and things like that. So I kind of already have an idea of what I want to do, so I'm just going to hop straight into that. This, I kind of want to make like one long wall of these put together, and I'm actually going to make this pretty realistic. I don't normally do this, but again, I want to make the rendering look as realistic as possible. So I'm going to get over the top here and double click, and then I'm going to use press T for tape measure, which is also up here. And I'm just going to click on one side, and you can see that it'll drag off of that. So it's basically referencing off that side. And again, down there in the bottom left, that's where our measurement is. So I'm going to do 0.25, which is 1/4 of an inch. And yeah, I think 1/4 of an inch is right. And I'm just going to do that around all of the sides. Now there is a tool that's called offset. If you clicked F and you clicked here, that would offset a square, and you could do that 0.25. But you'll see what I'm doing here in a second, why I don't want that. So I've got all of those in, and now I'm going to click A for arc. I think that's right. Yeah, arc. And we're going to use the 2-point arc. And I'm just going to click here at these intersections and click at the other intersection. You can see how that's like pink. It's already, determining what that radius is based on the 1/4 inch. And what I'm doing here is I'm just taking the corners off because I want to, I want this to be more like a 4x4. So they usually have the corners cut off of them. And had I done this in the 2-dimensional version, it would have been easier before I actually push-pulled it. But you can still just use the P button for push-pull and then just drag this to the bottom and it'll go away. But if I had done it before I pulled it up, I wouldn't have had to pull those down. I could have just deleted the edge, if that makes sense. So I'm just pushing these down to the bottom and letting go, and if you push them down to that bottom edge, that will just fully delete. And then I'm going to use B for paint bucket again, and I'm going to fill in this area here that got that weird texture on it. And then lastly, I'm just going to delete these guides that we drew with the tape measure. Okay. So now we have a 4x4. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to select it, I'm going to hit M, which is our move tool. It's also up here. And if I just move this, if I click and move, you can see that there is just one that's moving. But if I click move and I hit option, you can see how that adds another one. So it duplicates one. So I'm going to pull this out randomly, and I'm going to hit 3.5, which is going to basically line it up exactly with the other one. Now I want a bunch of these lined up. So instead of doing that multiple times, all I have to do is click X. That's going to put it down there in the bottom right, and then any number, and it's going to multiply that. So it's going to do that however many more times. So I'm going to say I want that 4 more times. If that doesn't look right, I'm going to do times again, and I'm going to do 5 more times. 5 times looks right, but again, I could do 6. And then once I'm done, sometimes I'll just kind of do more than I need, and I'll come in here and maybe use a tape measure tool to measure how far these are. And really, honestly, that 5, which I think is technically 6, 6 total, is really what I wanted. So I'm going to delete that last one. So yeah, there we go. Now we have one side of our table, and this is kind of going to be the end of the table, and then there will be a top and another one of these. So with that said, I'm gonna get a rough idea using the tape measure of how long I want this table to be. I think I want it to be about 30 inches long, maybe 36. Let's try 36. And what I can do is I can select all of these and I can make them into a component by hitting G. And that makes, basically what I'm about to do is the same thing as I just did adding these. I'm going to click move, so M for move. I'm going to select this bottom here and I'm going to hit option again. And that adds this other one, and I'm just going to pull it across. And you see how this will come out of plane if I'm pulling across, and then it'll lock into the green. We want it to stay on the green. So if I hold shift, then it's locked. It's locked in that green. So we're going to pull it over to that edge and let go. So now anything, this is the cool part about the components. Anything I do to either one of these is going to do it to the opposite. So if I go in here and I say I want this piece here shorter, you can see what that does. All of them are shorter. It's so nice to have things like that. And if you ever need to isolate one of these, you can right click, you can hit make unique. And now this individual one will be unique inside of the larger component. So hold on, let me do that again. You see that? How that one individual one now is unique. And if I want one of these whole pieces to be individual and unique, then I would put make unique instead of double clicking in and clicking the individual one that I wanted to be unique. Okay. So now let's just move quickly on to the top. I don't know how I want to attach the top, to be honest with you. This is one thing that I was thinking about, and I'm not really sure, so we're going to kind of mess around with this. First, I think I'm just going to make the top, and I'm not even really sure what I want to use for the top. I really like the boards that we used in 2 videos ago for the dining table. Those are really nice boards. They're kind of expensive though, but I think worth it. So we're just going to do a rectangle. You can put it anywhere. I'm just going to pull it out and make it a rectangle. And again, we're going to look down here in the bottom right, and I'm going to type in the measurements. If I'm not wrong, those are 1/8. I can't quite remember. I think they're 1/8. So it'd be 7.5 inches, comma 36 inches, because that's the length of the table. Oh, and I did that in the wrong direction. So if I do 36 by 7.5, there we go. And now I'm going to hit P for push pull and pull this up. I know those boards are 1 1/4 inches thick. And I'm going to triple click. I think it's triple click. And then G and make that board a component. And then I'm also going to add my texture. As you can see here, this texture here on the edges is not right. Now, sometimes what I'll do is I'll just have a separate texture that's flipped 180, and that works. But in some cases, I don't have that. So if you double click inside of the component and you click the one face, you can right click and you can make that a unique texture. Create the texture. And when you do that, you now can right click and you have this texture option. You can do position, zoom out a bit, grab the rotate tool, rotate that, and it's also scalable. So I'm going to rotate it, let go. And now you can see that that texture is the correct orientation. So I'm going to do the same thing over here, make that a unique texture. Again, this is overkill, but I want to show you guys how to do this just in case you want to make a very realistic rendering. So again, rotate. And then also, lastly, I'm going to add this in-grain texture here, which looks very realistic, actually. Although it kind of is not seamless right there, but it looks pretty good. So I like the idea. I like the idea of having this not on top like that. I like seeing the tops of these large 4x4s. I think the chunky look looks really nice outdoors. And so what I think I want to do is either inset it inside of here, or I want to like notch these out and kind of have it sit in there. But I think that's going to be really difficult to do that and make that look right. So I'm going to hit push pull, and we're just going to pull this to the inside there and inside here. I'm going to hit M for move, and we can move that up or down. And we can hold shift to keep it on the blue. See that? And we're just going to go down to where it references off the top of this face. And then again, we're going to do this outside, so we can go this way. Hold shift, keeps it on the red, and then it'll lock against the outside edge there. And if we do move and then option, see how that adds another one? We can click, do 7.5, enter, times 2. And as you can see, that's kind of not what we want. You know, obviously it's a little too big, so either one of these is gonna have to be cut down, or the center one's gonna have to be cut down. I think I like the outside two cut down. So what we can do is we can hit shift. So that's gonna select both these outside ones, and we're gonna make those individually unique from the center one. And I'll show you what happens when we do that. So first though, I want to figure out how much further these are. So they're 1.5 inches. So it sticks out 1.5 inches. So if I double click into here, hit push pull so P for push pull, and I move that back 0.75 inches, which is 3/4 of an inch, and that's half of 1/2. Then I take both of these and I just move them back over here. Now we're good. And you can see how it didn't change the middle one. So the outside two are components that are identical and will be changed together, but the inside one is no longer, even though it was initially duplicated from this one here. And that's what's really great about that make unique. So now we kind of have to figure out how these things are going to be attached. And I honestly don't know. I don't know what I want to do there. I kind of think that like an aluminum angle bar or something like that would be really nice there, but I don't know if that's going to be thick enough to keep these from like basically pushing in. I don't know. This is kind of the part of where you get in designing where you almost have to take this out into the shop to figure that section out. I'm not sure. And that might be what I end up doing. So I think I'm either going to do like a metal bracket. I've also thought about maybe sliding these inset here. So cutting a dado there, or a rabbit. And but I'm not sure. And part of me just really wants to take that into the shop, so I think I'll leave that be. And that's kind of the thing that I kind of want to showcase in these videos, is that this is a really awesome tool, and this is what we use to sort of get our heads around what we want and get an idea of what something's going to look like. But we don't necessarily do everything to an absolute T on here. You know, you don't have to do everything to the 9th degree, I guess. You can still take things out into the shop and figure them out that way, and a lot of times you have to. But this program is just a game changer when it comes to visualizing an idea in your head or showcasing that idea to somebody else. That's the biggest thing. And that's what I'm going to show you next, is how do we bring this look, you know, outside of this program and show it to somebody else so they get an idea of what it is we're going for. So what we're going to do, we're going to hit view, which is off your screen here, and we're going to hide the guides, the axes, the edge style. We're going to hide all the edges, and view, we're going to do depth. Is that what I want to do? You can play around with this edge style and really get an idea of what these different things do. So if we take that profiles off, it really takes all the edges off. You can see how realistic already that's starting to look. And if we add shadows in, which you going back to view, you're going to add the shadows in. You can click window, open up the shadows box over here, and you can play around with all these different settings. And you can change the time of day to give you a different look here. Let's see. I think that looks pretty nice. And honestly, that's pretty darn realistic. The one thing that I don't like as far as this rendering goes is I don't like how this these top boards are like different. I mean, they're all the same. They're not different. They look too natural. So I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna shift click and click every other one, and I'm going to flip those along the red. And you see how that just changed the grain up there? It just makes it, oh, that looks a little weird. Maybe we'll change this one green, this one green, this one green. Yeah, that's just a little bit more realistic looking. It's less, you know, I guess perfect. Maybe we'll change one more of these. Yeah, something like that. Okay, cool. So now we have this really darn realistic looking sketch here, and we're going to turn that into a rendering that we can show somebody. So we're going to get the view on the screen kind of where we want that to be. We're going to hit file at the top, and we're going to hit export 2D graphic, and you can do PNG, which is going to give you a basically transparent background, or you can do JPEG or any of these other ones. Excuse me. I like PNG, and I really like it because you can put it on top of different things, and it'll be great on an invoice or and different things like that. So if I export that and now I pull that file up, let it load, you can see how realistic that looks. And you can take this anywhere, like I said. So put that on an invoice, send that to a client, send that to your friend, put it on your phone, show it to people, see what they think about the design, and you can get a really good idea of what it is that you're making. Well, that's gonna wrap this video up. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and huge shout out to SketchUp for sponsoring this week's video, and they're also gonna sponsor a handful more of these videos, so look out for that. And please comment down below what you would like to see, because this video, I know it's kind of a little bit just like a broad stroke, and I really just wanted it to be an announcement that we're doing this, that, you know, send us what you would like to see. I know a big thing was cut list, and I promise in the next video that one will be about how we make our cut list from one of these models. So look forward to that. And again, I'm just super excited to be partnering with them, because this is a program that I've been using for 10 years, or roughly, I don't know the exact number. But since I was a very little kid, I was making skate parks on this program before I ever even began woodworking, and it was just sort of this fun thing to play around with. And then as a transition kind of into making stuff, and then Molly and I started a small furniture business and things like that, this program was vital in our success. Being able to show somebody what they're actually getting was just huge for us and really set us apart from everyone else around. So I'm just a massive fan of SketchUp in general, and honestly a little bit humbled and honored to be able to work with them on this series, and they loved what you guys had to say last time. So again, just leave all those comments down below and we will hopefully be getting to those questions in the coming videos, and give us some feedback. That's the big thing. What do you want to see? How do you want these to be structured? Just let us know. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next week.